So I had Dan come in here and I said, and he comes in and I said, so our verse was that I picked out was, the thing was, do not be afraid of them, Yahweh your Elohim will fight for you. So that was our verse. And so we went over it before, and then he came in, and I said, oh, that's so scary. But remember, what does the verse say? And so we repeated it several times. So it's just fun. I said, it doesn't really show how big he was, but it shows the size of his head. So we measured it out here on the floor, and they're just like that. It was fun. Yeah.
Son.
Yeah. I hear you. But it was really good. And I weirdly had tofu.
Yeah.
And I don't normally have tofu, but yeah. I used it. Yeah, I like
so did any of your, do you communicate at all a lot with the people in Hayabal that are there?
Not a whole lot, but sometimes.
Did anybody that you know there send, I mean, she sent a couple of pictures, but I don't think it was like people that you knew.
Pictures of what?
I was just wondering if any of them communicated with you about what they did for the month of August.
Oh, what they did?
Pretty fresh, but then some of the stuff.
No, I know most of them fast, but I don't know what else they do.
Yeah, I think I normally go to Walmart as opposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, it's fairly affordable. So,
Yeah.
I'll just go for that.
Not if I save the day. I went into calling you and be like, okay, what did you do?
Search your brain.
Tell me your- Yes.
Okay.
That actually looks normal.
It's all set.
Yep.
Good to go.
It's only like a few seconds.
Excuse us.
You want to sit here on the edge?
No. I'll sit over there.
Where are you sitting?
Right here's fine.
Are you sure?
I'll sit in.
Okay. Well, you can move the table forward. I'm better at being a little closer.
This is where
to
the class
seeing
clown
stuff.
sits over here.
I know, that's where you're cool.
Yeah, that's true. That there is
This one is
not
ready to be
there.
plugged in, but I don't know.
Are you going to stay with Daddy?
Have you started the class, Mr.?
Not quite. We're just getting the computer set to go.
So I got a joke thing.
Okay.
Wait, don't you want to share it with the people?
You figure it out now?
I don't know.
They might hear you.
Hey. I think it's running.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started then. Who remembers the last letter that we learned last week? Anybody?
That would be between you and me, because I don't think David was here. If we don't have the answer, you're out of luck.
It was this letter. Which one is that? Noon.
Yay, you turned resist.
Noon was the last one we learned.
What?
So we went over
No, I just
mem and noon. So the mem is equivalent to the English M, and this is equivalent to English N. And then we had the final forms of these two. The mem sophete, which is like that, and the noon sophete, which is just a long straight line that goes down below the line. And then we learned a word with this letter. Who remembers the word? Anybody know? Ma'im. What does ma'im mean?
Water.
Water.
You got it.
Good. Okay, and then look at my
That's
notes.
mine?
Ma'im, yes.
Well, what's the last letter?
That's
It's
the-
like Pei or something.
That's the mem sofit.
So still mem is just the final form.
Maybe
Yeah.
like a Q.
What's that? Okay, and then we learned another word. We learned the word for yes. Who remembers what that is?
For what?
Yes. How do you say yes in Hebrew?
It's Barbie's husband.
Yes. Can.
Ken.
Better remember it.
Right? Ken is yes. And then how do you say no or not? Lo. Good. All right. So let's go ahead and go through some more of the alphabet. We got up through noon. We're a little past halfway of the alphabet. So the next letter is Samech, which is pretty similar in the block form, which is like an S in English. So the Samech. So as an example, what does that say?
Mass.
Mas.
Mas.
Yeah, mas. And it's not a Spanish word. So, mas in Hebrew means like taxes, basically. Tax. Or, yeah, in biblical Hebrew it could even be like a tributary or something like that. Mas. Okay. So that's Samech. Let's see if there's a Samech over here. Here's a Samech, all right by itself, floating there. So some of the sections in biblical Hebrew, in sections of the Bible, you'll see a Samech appear after the end of something. It's just to break up different sections of the text. So this is actually the end of last week's Torah portion. So the next Torah portion starts here. This week's Torah portion is there. So this is just marking the end of that section. It can be helpful to know that when you're looking for, if you know the Torah portion starts like in the middle of a chapter or something, and you look for a Samech or a Pei most of the time will be what's separating your portion.
Is that like in the original Hebrew?
I don't know at what point those would have been put in. So I don't think it was there like in ancient times, but I don't know.
So that's always the end of our Torah portions.
You'll either see a Samech or a Pei, I think, almost always
Okay.
at the end, like dividing up between a Torah portion or something. All right, and then the next letter is Ayin. So Ayin is kind of similar to Aleph. So it's silent. It doesn't have a sound, but it can hold the place for any vowel. So we probably have a couple examples here, at least on the page. So you can see here we have Ya'aseh. In this case, it's going to make the ah vowel sound because that's the vowel that's with it. And then here, it's going to say eh. So be'ever, you see the eh vowel. And then another example here, it can even have the shva under it, where it makes a very short sound, if anything. Ebra. Okay, so Ayin and Aleph, at least in modern Hebrew, the way they function is the same. There's not a difference between them. In ancient Hebrew, the Ayin would have been actually a guttural sound. And actually, Jews that originate from like the Middle East who also speak Arabic from wherever the region that they came from, they'll differentiate between an Ayin and an Aleph because in Arabic you also have similar letters and the Ayin is still like a guttural, throaty sound, and so they'll differentiate a little bit between the sounds of those letters, but most people don't differentiate and they pretty much sound the same. But you can see actually hints of this in the way that we translate words like with Sodom and Gomorrah would be an example. So in Hebrew, Gomorrah is actually Amorah, so it's with an ayin, Amorah, but we say Sodom and Gomorrah because it's like a guttural sound is what the ayin used to be. So that's why there's some confusion with those,
Just like
with certain
also,
sounds. Gaza and Aza is also.
Megiddo, you know, or the Armageddon when they, you know, it's Har Megiddo, right? Har mountain, Har, and then Megiddo.
Megiddo?
Is the valley also.
Oh, well, yeah, right. So the hey versus an ah sound.
But like in our English,
Yeah.
you always hear the Armageddon, the Armageddon.
Right,
but
not
it's
har, yeah.
Armageddon.
Yeah. Okay, so that's ayin, so it's functioning the same as aleph, basically. Okay, and then we have pei. So pei, and we also have fei. And those letters so with the dot makes a P sound, right? And no dot makes the F sound. So pei and fei. So just like with those other letters that I showed you, right? The cough is the one where there's actually something there that he's coughing on. The bet, when he actually has something to bet. And the pei, when he actually has something to pay, right? So fei is the empty letter, pei if there's the dot in it. So the three letters, so there are only three letters that do this, right? We have the kaf and chaf and the bet and vet and pei fei. So these are the only three letters in Hebrew that have that variation of the dagesh being in the middle to make the sound change. Okay, so you have the pei versus fei, you have kaf versus chaf, and vet versus vet. So the one with the dot is always the harder sound. So P versus F, you can notice with your lips where your lips are, it's harder pa versus fa, where you're leaving a little bit of a gap. Same thing with a B versus a V sound. And then ka and cha is just in your throat, but it's the same concept. It's the hard ka versus cha in the back of your throat. So the hard sound, the more, and then the softer guttural cha sound. So those are those three letters. And this dot inside of the letter is called a dagesh. Dagesh just means like emphasized. Okay. And then, like with the kaf, the pei also has a sofit form. So in the block, it's basically the same concept. Like, you know, you had the kaf and then the kaf sofit with the line coming down. It's the same concept. You're dropping that bottom line in the block form, and then there's probably not one on the page there. I don't see one on the screen. It's not necessarily that common of a letter. But yeah, so it follows the same kind of pattern in the block form, but in the handwritten form is a little different. So the easiest way to remember how to write it is to look at a lamed, and you're going to start here, you're coming up, and then you bring the line down further. So that's basically the difference between the pei sofit and the lamed, is that line at the top, you just continue it down and come across. So there's your lamed, and then with this one you actually bring it down and across. And this one also will go up above the line. So it's taller than the other letters. Just like with the lamed, you can see the lamed is bigger than the aleph. So this one will be the same size as the lamed.
So it's like a cursive L almost, right?
Yeah, kind of similar to that. It's also yeah, it's kind of like that. Okay, so let's do a couple words with that one. So an example would be this one. So we have a samech, vav with the dot over it. It says O, right? So the samech is our new letter, the S sound, right? So sof. This word says sof. And then in the middle of a word,
That's not Y, I mean, C. C is soup.
suf is like reeds or something. So like,
Oh.
yeah. But the Red Sea is Yam Suf. Yam is
Oh,
the
Yam.
sea,
Okay,
right?
sorry.
And then Suf is the describer.
But this is so.
Yeah, Sof is, it means like end. End.
Oh, the end.
The end of something. So, and then, let's see, what else could we do? Trying to think of another example. Oh, there we go. We could use the ein. So what would that say? Afa. Yeah. So afa. So we have the ein with the a vowel. So it's just starting with a vowel. Afa. Afa means like flying.
What's that?
It means fly or flying. You'll see that root quite a bit actually in the biblical Hebrew. And then, so, I'm not thinking of a good one. Okay, so another word we could do for the P sound. What would that say? Po, yep, which means here. Po, and then what would that say? Pay. Mouse, yep. Pay means mouse. Okay. And then next letter is the tzadi or tzadik. So this one also is bigger than the other letters. Basically just looks like a big 3. And then in the block form, it looks
Looks like a man
different.
on his knees with his hands up.
Yeah. I was going to point one out on the screen, but. And then you can see an example of the sofit form of the tzadi right here. And that. So it's kind of the same concept like with this one, right? With just the tail. The bottom of the letter folds down below the line. Same thing there. And then the handwritten form, it's another one that's based off of the lamed shape. So just like with this one. So this one goes back up though. So if you notice with the Fe-Sofit, right, you come back down across the line. And with the Tzadi Sofit, you go back up across the line. Okay? So not similar at all, right?
The tzadi is reverse negative. The block form one on top.
Oh, so I did this wrong.
No, it's
This one?
yeah.
Is that what you're saying? There we go. See, I never write block letters, so it looks backwards
I
to
know
me.
I never write the cursive myself.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll do sometimes with these letters, just to kind of highlight the difference, is if you bring that back down and come across, it kind of looks like a treble clef a little bit. It's a little different, but it kind of looks like the treble clef from music. And so that you can remember it's the F sound, the final F, clef, right? And then with this one, if you come back up and across, then you get a pretzel, which is tzadi, pretzel. It's the same sound, pretzel and clef. So if you can't remember, you can exaggerate with your lines, continue it longer,
So you didn't make that
right?
final sound up on top in the cursive.
This one? Yeah, sorry. So it's like
Okay,
this,
just wanted to make sure.
right? So yeah. So all it needs to be is back, across, and upward, but you can exaggerate it to whatever extent you want. I've seen some people who bring it, back in or something. So. Okay, so that letter is tzadi, which is going to be the same as like T and S together. So, like in the word aretz. Aretz, which means land or country or earth. Aretz. Let's see if there's any others showing up on the screen there. Yeah, so in this word, ha'aretz, right? The earth, the land, ha'aretz.
I know Zion's real name is Zion.
Zion, right? Yeah, so it actually starts with the Zion, the tzadi. So the name of this letter, this is one of the ones that people will pronounce differently. So some people just call it tzadi, and some people call it tzaddik. So I think tzaddik is actually the actual name of the letter, but a lot of people shorten it and don't pronounce the kuf on the end. So.
I'll tell you, like referred to that backwards. Like it was you were you went from the I to the T.
Oh really? Tzadi. Yeah. Some people do it that way without the kuf on the end. So the other one that we went over, where there will be a variation in the name, is Yod and Yud. Some people call it Yud, and some people Yod. So that one also has a variation. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
So my name, I feel like I've definitely asked you this before. My name, would it has tzadi.
Yeah, it has the tzadi. Tirza. Tirza. Yeah. Tirza.
So it has the TZ sound?
Yeah, it has the tzadi in it. Yeah. Okay. So we've got samech, ayin, pei, fei, right? The final fei, fei sofit, tzadi, and tzadi sofit. And who remembers what sofit means?
Ending?
Yeah, like we just talked about, right? We just did that word as an example. Sof. Sof means end. So sofit is just based off of that same word, right? So a tzadi sofit is just an ending tzadi, right? On the end of a word, it looks like that. Sof and then sofit would be written like this. Sof and sofit. So sof is a noun, right? The end, an end. And sofit is an adjective describing something, an ending tzadi. All right, and then the next letter is kuf. The block form, something like that. And the equivalent in English would just be a K. This is kuf. You can see some examples up here. Ha-chazaka. Right there's a kuf. There might not be another one up there.
So the cursive kind of looks like the block?
Yeah, it's pretty similar, yes. And sometimes you might see it a little more curved or whatever. Yeah. And again, with this letter, it hangs down below the line, as you can see here. So same thing with the handwritten form. You want to make sure that it's coming down below the line. Some of the issues you'll see with this letter is if you don't drop that line down far enough, it can look like a hey, right? So you want to make sure that this line is, coming down a ways so that it's obvious that it wasn't a hey that you were trying to write. You also want to make sure that you don't write this here and this line over here. Make sure that it's underneath that curve, because otherwise it looks like two separate letters, a resh and a nun sofit, right? So you want to be sure that that's all, it's underneath the end of this. And yeah, it's better to exaggerate the length of that line coming down so that it doesn't look short like a hey. And you also want to leave a good gap up here because you have the potential of making it look like a chet, right? If you could connect it or leave it too close, you don't come down below far enough, right? Yeah, so there's a lot of potential for mix-ups with this letter if you don't be sure to accentuate the correct part, right? So the hanging down below the line, make sure it's back underneath the curve. That's one of the letters that on Hebrew homework pages that I would get turned in. That would be very often like, I'd misread something or be like, I don't know what they're saying there, and realize, oh, that's supposed to be a kuf. It looked like a resh and a nun or something. Okay, and then the next letter is resh.
Say it again.
Resh. Resh.
More of an
So-
A sound in there than E. I always pronounced it resh.
Resh. Yeah, resh. So this one doesn't really have an English equivalent. A lot of people will show it with an R, but it's not an R sound really.
It's like a G. It's like a G.
So we'll put a line through the R.
It's like the French
Yes, it's like the French R. It's in the back of your throat.
It's like the what's on what's on
Yep. It's in the back of your throat.
That's how you say it.
Torah, Torah, Torah. Yeah. So one of the ways you can kind of feel the difference, okay, if you do like an S sound and you hold your hand on your throat, so you feel it, say S, and your vocal cords don't really vibrate. You just say S. But then if you say Z, you'll feel the vocal cords vibrating. So the difference of the S and Z is the same difference between the resh and the chet or the kaf. So chet or kaf, if you say chet or kaf, and you shouldn't feel the vocal cords vibrating. But then if you do the resh, it's in the same point in your throat, and the vocal cords are vibrating with it. Resh. So that's basically the sound. It's actually in the same point in your throat as the chet, so it's a guttural sound. And that is by far the hardest letter in Hebrew. That takes the most practice for non-Hebrew speakers. So I should say from English. If you're learning Hebrew from English, that's the one English speakers have the most trouble with, is the resh, both in learning to pronounce it and also in hearing it. Because a lot of times, I remember when I was first learning, I would hear somebody say something, and I would totally miss the resh, and I would hear it just as a vowel, or I would hear it as like an L or a W type sound, because your ear just isn't even trained to hear it, because we don't have that type of a sound. So that's one that definitely
do it
takes
for us.
practice. So resh, or like in the word, ebra, or re. So it's in the back of your throat. Haaretz, asher. So on the end of a word too, especially, is where when I was learning, I had a lot of trouble hearing it. Asher, because it can almost just sound like you're going to a vowel on the end, right? Asher. And I would just hear it as like asher or something, because I wasn't, listening for it, didn't know what I was
So then
hearing.
say it with the R sound.
What?
Isn't that okay? So that is the R sound, but
Yeah.
it's not the R sound.
It's not an R sound. Yeah, it's kind of similar to a French R, but it's not like an English R. Yeah.
French. Nobody knows what French
Nobody knows
Say.
French? Oh, yeah, well, no. That's true.
They don't either.
Okay, so there's the resh. So yeah, some of the words that we had already learned, like aretz or asher. Who remembers asher? What does that word mean?
Happy or joyful or
That or which or who, right? So here in this case it's saying haaretz hatova, the good land, asher be'ever hayarden, which is on the other side across the Jordan.
so the name Asher. Asher is how is it spelled with a
Yeah, it's spelled the same. It's just going to have a different vowel mark there. If I remember right, it's this vowel mark instead of that vowel mark, but it's spelled the same. It's the same letters. Okay. All right, and then the next letter is sheen. And we also have a variation on this one. So this is sheen and this is seen. And then the block form.
Oh, I like this letter.
So the sheen makes the SH sound and the seen is just an S sound. So sheen versus seen. And so this is another one I think I might have showed you already, but they look like maybe very different, but if you just erase that, they're actually the same, right? So it's just the fastest way to make that symbol, and you just have an extra connecting line because you can do it in one swoop.
So they are the same, but the dot's on the opposite corner?
Yeah, so the seen of the dot is on the left, and the sheen, the dot is on the right. So the way when someone taught me, they said, right, this is sheen and this is seen, and the dot is on the right for the sheen because it's never right to seen. It's never right to sin, right? So the dot's on the left, not on the right, right? That's how you remember. Okay? So some example words with a sheen, or some of these letters. Let's just do a few different ones here. So what does that say? Cafe. So kuf, right, with the aval, ka, fe. And then
I could use some right now.
and then what's this say? Asher. Right.
I'm glad the Bible's in Hebrew and regular script.
All right. What does this say? Keresh. Good. Keresh. That's these three letters in order. You see that? And it's actually a word. Keresh is a board.
A what?
A board.
A board?
A board, yeah. Keresh. Alrighty, and then the last letter. Who knows what it is? Tav.
Or Tao. Some people pronounce it Tao, right?
Yeah, some people, but not really Hebrew speakers.
They're cheaters.
Okay, and so the tav is equivalent to the English T. It is slightly softer T sound than the tet. So tet is supposed to be the harder T sound, and tav is a little bit softer. And you can kind of just like on the roof of your mouth, where your tongue, how much your tongue connects, like with the difference between a D and a T. It's kind of a cross between those two, basically. So it's just it's a little harder than a D, but it's a little softer than a T. But for the most part, it sounds mostly like a T, but it's slightly softer. Yeah, slightly softer. That's why in English translations of Hebrew names and stuff, you'll see a lot of THs, but there's no TH sound in Hebrew. But it's because it's a tav that's used in the original, and the tav is a slightly softer T sound, so it was probably even exaggerated in ancient Hebrew to where it was almost more like a TH type of sound, and over the centuries it kind of got hardened up to where it's almost like a tet. So. But that's why you'll see names like, or you'll see things like Bethlehem instead of Beit Lechem, right? Beit Lechem. They say Bethlehem, so they softened it to a TH instead of a T sound. Okay, so that is the entire alphabet. Now you are ready to read. Yep. So we'll go ahead and...
Are you saying that this next Shabbat we're starting to read the Parashah in Hebrew?
That's right. Next Shabbat at the Shabbat meeting, it's all Hebrew from now on. Anybody who didn't come to class is just going to miss out. All right, so that's it for the first part of class. We'll take about 10 minutes and then do the reading. Okay. Lo Hasof. Yesh Od.
I'm gonna go ahead and just set these back.
Okay,
Where do
in
you
the garage.
normally put them?
Yeah, you just set them in the garage on the
Did
little
you get the paintbrush
rolling
back?
workbench. I don't care. I'm sure
No,
you
I put it
okay,
back in
good.
there.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Is that any better?
It's about the same.
But does that mean he has to walk around with his phone then?
Clip it in your beard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a clip. That's fine. Under.
Hang it over my ear.
All right. I mean that might work. Or
Try it.
you can like fix it between the like as close like. Put it like in your button or something and kind of.
Okay. If we might be able to be any I don't think I need this tag on here. Scissors. got my
There's scotch tape, I think. There's scotch tape somewhere we can just like tape it with the left lever like just to your shirt, like, right below your chin or something.
Oh, which one? The other one?
Below that.
You never know in this day and age what's going to happen. I mean, I was glad he was something.
Tape clip out.
Just pin it to my side of my head. Here's a little clip. That would work, wouldn't it? It's too big.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Might work.
And then just like
Keep it right here on the collar. Is that what you're thinking?
and then
maybe
try
you
to
do
have
it
it facing.
How you think is best.
Yeah, you want it facing your mouse as much as possible. Good. There.
Okay. Testing. Testing. Is that better?
That's a little better.
A little better.
Yeah.
Good. I just have to keep my face down the whole time I'm talking.
Or if you talk like louder too, that'll help.
Okay, I talk a little louder. me, he said, but you live here, right? It's called this week.
Okay, it's gotta be the first word, right?
Yep, it's the first word there. N. Vayetchanan. Vayetchanan is the name of the Torah portion. Yeah, so the name of the Torah portion is generally that first unique word, right? Sometimes it'll be, the fourth or fifth word. Sometimes it'll even be into the second verse if that starting verse is very common, like the Lord spoke to Moses saying, But the first unique word is how they pick a name for the Torah portion. It's also the way that they pick the names of the books of the Bible. Did you know that? So the reason why,
Not the English.
like, not in English, right? But in the Hebrew names, right? We have Bereshit, which is just in the beginning, and then Deuteronomy is just words. These are the words that the Lord spoke, right? And
What was
Moses spoke. Lamentations is Echa, which is just like how or what, because that's the first word of the thing. Yeah. Okay. So, Va'et Hanan El Adonai Ba'et Hahi Lemor. Okay, so Et Hanan from the root word. Who knows what the root is going to be off of this word? So the vav on the front is and. The aleph is the person doing the speaking. I spoke. So that's, yeah, because the tav is part of the structure of the verb. So this is the root. Chet, nun, nun. Hanan, anybody know what that means? What does that root have to do with? Hannah, you might know because it's like your name. Yeah. It's similar. Similar, so it's related. It's not the exact same, but it's from that same base root of chen, right? Chana. So va'et Hanan means, and I pleaded, or I begged. So he's basically asking for chen. He's asking for the grace or mercy. So I pleaded El Adonai, pleaded with the Lord. Ba'et, so et is just a time. So ba'et is at the time. Hahi, so at that time, hahi just means he is like it, but at that time, lemor, saying. All right, verse 24, Adonai Elohim, ata hachilota leharot et avdecha. So here's an example of the two shvas, right? Where the second one makes a little bit of a vowel sound, right? Because generally in the middle of a word, it's ending the syllable, right? Av. And then this one is starting a syllable, so it'll be a little bit of a vowel sound. Decha. Avdecha. Et godlecha. So there we are again with those two, the two shvas. Godlecha ve'et yadcha hachazaka asher mi'el bashamayim uva'aretz asher ya'aseh chema'asecha v'chig vurotecha. Right? So it starts off with Adonai Elohim, right? So Adonai and then Yod He Vav He. So usually this is the vowels that they'll put with the name of God, right? Is the Shva and then the Kamatz or the Patach here. And then, so in this case, because Adonai came first, because when the Jewish people read this, right, they just pronounce Adonai, right? They don't pronounce the name, they just say Adonai. And so here you already have Adonai written out, right? And so then the name comes, and so they vowel it differently. You see that? With the E instead of the A, because this A vowel is because of Adonai, right? So they put the E vowel with it here because this is going to be pronounced as Elohim in this case. So Adonai, Elohim, right? You got the E for Elohim, right? So when you notice the voweling difference on the name of the Lord, you'll know that the reason is because Adonai is either coming right before or after, and so they're making this one be pronounced as Elohim, and the other one's Adonai.
So they're changing the name of the creator.
They're just, yeah, they're not changing it, but they're using a different title in place of it.
No, it's a change because Yud Hey Vav Hey never spells Adonai.
Yeah. Okay, and then Ata. Anybody know what that means?
You are?
You, yeah. Hachilota. So this word, the root here is hechel. Does anyone know that word? Probably not. So hechel. Ha is the usually, yes. In this case, it's actually part of the root of the verb. So it's saying you began or started. You have begun. Leharot. How about the root on this word? Anybody can break that one down?
Mountain. Har.
No. So it's actually starting with the resh. Aleph. Hey is the other root letter. So what's that root mean? Hannah knows. C. Yeah. So in this form with the leharot. What? Yeah, like roe, yes. So leharot, in this case, it means to show, right? So this is the transitive, right? Not you're seeing, but you're showing someone else. So you have begun to show et avdecha, your servant. So eved is like a servant, so avdecha is your servant. So you've begun to show your servant et godlecha, your greatness. Gadol, you guys might know the word gadol, which is like big or great. So et godlecha, your greatness. Ve'et yadcha, and your hand. Yadcha. So yad means hand. Okay. Ha chazaka. Anybody know the word chazak? Strong, right? So your mighty arm or your strong hand. Ha chazaka. Yadcha ha chazaka. Asher mi el bashamayim.
On the earth. But in the heaven.
Me. Har.
Who, me is who.
That's right, like me, come on.
Yeah. Mi el bashamayim. So who is a God in heaven?
And on earth.
Uva aretz, and on the earth. Asher yaaseh, which will do. Ke maasecha. So the kaf on the front means, anybody know? Kaf on the front of a word means like or as. Okay? So who is a God in heaven or on the earth that can do, say ke maasecha, like your deeds, like what you do. Vechi gvurotecha, and like your mighty acts. Gvurot are like mighty deeds. Gibor is like the word for a mighty man or a hero, a warrior. And so gvurot are the works, mighty works, basically. All right. Verse 24, and then on to 25. Let me scroll it down a little bit.
Can
Yes.
you do that last word one more time, please? Givor was mighty, and then works.
Ki gvurotecha, yeah. So, maasecha, this one, or so just this
Yeah,
word?
the last word there.
So yeah, the root, it comes from the word gibor. Gimel, vet, and resh. Gibor. And also gever. Gever is another word that's just like a man. And then gibor is like a mighty man or a hero, that type of thing. And then gvurot, gvurot is the word for mighty deeds, basically.
That was plural.
Yeah. So gvura would be singular. Gvurot. Yep. Okay, and then verse 25. Ebrana ve'er'e et ha'aretz hatova asher be'ever hayarden hahar hatov hazeh ve'halvanon. Okay. So Ebra, what's the root here? Yeah, ever, right? The ayin bet resh, which has to do with crossing over, right? Like Hebrew. Ebra. So I will. So the aleph on the front of that verb is the future tense form for first person. I will. So he's asking a question though, basically. Ebra na, right? So he's saying please. Na is generally gonna be like please, or it's emphasizing the question. In some cases it will be a statement, but it's like, how do you explain it?
Isn't that like Bevakasha?
Like in which song? Bona. So that's a request though. It's most commonly showing up as a request when it's inside of a request saying, please let this be the case. Also, another way you'll see it is like in the phrase when they're saying, I found favor in your eyes. So if I found favor in your sight, commonly that will be inserted into the phrase, kind of almost making it like a plead of like, if please I'm finding favor in your sight, or if I may please find favor in your sight. So yeah, it's mostly going to function kind of like please. So Ebrana ve'er'e. So again, we have that root that we saw right up here, right? Seeing, yeah. And I will see, right? Let me cross over and see et ha'aretz, the land, ha'tova, the good land. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write down this root for us, so we should learn this one. This is a very common root. You're going to see a lot. And it means see. Okay, so the resh, aleph, hey, ra'ah. From here, resh, aleph, hey, that root, very common, because it's going to show up in the words like show, see, and even that's the same root actually that is used for the word provide. So like in the place Adonai Yireh, right, is what's called the Lord will provide, that Abraham called the name of the place where he took Isaac to be sacrificed. But that root shows up a lot. Okay, so and I will see the good land, ha'aretz ha'tova, asher, which is be'ever, across, right, on the other side, Hayarden, on the other side of the Jordan, Hahar, the mountain, Hatov, the good mountain, Hazeh, this good mountain, right, or that good mountain, Ve Halavanon, what's that? Lebanon, yeah. Good.
Almost said
Lebanon. Yeah. So, you guys want to hear something interesting about this word?
Yes, we do.
You sure?
Yes.
It might take a little while. Okay, so Lebanon. Where's Lebanon?
North of Israel.
Yeah, it's like just north of Israel, right? Which I guess in the big borders, the full biblical borders, I think it's mostly included, right? Within, right? But it's interesting here, right? Here's Moses is saying, let me go and see the good land, which is on the other side of the Jordan, right? So he wants to see that land on the other side of the Jordan. And the good mountain, right? Hahara Tovazeh. What mountain do you think he's talking about?
Mount Moriah.
Yeah.
Oh, you think so?
The good mountain. That's what I think he's talking about. Vehalvanon. So I've always thought, this is kind of random. Like, why does he say he wants to go see the land across the Jordan, the good mountain, or the holy mountain, and Lebanon? Because it kind of just seems like that's way up there, right? So, the sages deduced that this word actually can mean the temple, or be used in reference to the temple, which obviously at that point there's no temple. But we know that Moses saw things that weren't, he went, and basically when he went up on the mountain, God showed him like the heavenly pattern of the tabernacle and different things. So it's kind of interesting. The reason why they connect this word, though, is actually in Isaiah. It talks about, in Isaiah chapter 10, as you're going through, it's talking about the armies coming and basically destroying the land of Israel, and it's going town by town and talking about different things happening. And then it says he's shaking his fist at Jerusalem, and then at the very end of the chapter, it says, and Lebanon will fall by a mighty one, which is kind of random because it's working its way north to south toward Jerusalem, and then it says Lebanon will fall by a mighty one. Like, why would it all of a sudden jump back up north? So it's like the climax of this whole taking over Israel, wiping out the cities, getting into shaking his fist at Jerusalem, and then Lebanon falls. So it's kind of an interesting connection. So from that, they had deduced that Lebanon can actually represent the temple. And if you think about when Solomon built the temple, what was like the main frame of the temple?
Yeah, cedar.
Cedars from Lebanon, right? So there is an association there. And so I think this might actually be a hinted thing. Obviously, I think literally it's talking about the northern part of Israel and Lebanon like that. But I think there's also a hidden thing of like Moses understood like the whole goal of Israel, the holy mountain and the temple on that mountain is what he really wants to see. And also from that word Lebanon, what's the root of the word? Lamed bet nun, which is what? Lavan, which means what? White. Okay. And then, when you build on this word, okay, so generally this is the way things work. Okay, so tzachak. Who knows this root? Tzachak. Tzachak, yeah. Do you know that? The name Yitzchak. What's the name Yitzchak mean? Laughter, right? So tzachak has to do with laughter. If I put a nun on the end of that, okay, it's a tzachkan. That would be like somebody who's laughing all the time. A tzachkan. He's like a jokester or somebody who's always laughing.
Don't say Sharon.
Okay?
Say Sharon.
Yeah.
She's always laughing.
A jokester. So then if you put another nun on Lavan, what could be the meaning of this? Not white, but someone who whitens or something who whitens. So what's the purpose of the temple? To cleanse, to purify. So within that word even, you can get that meaning of the whitener. So
Wait a minute, where did laughter come in the mouth?
that's an example of why the nun functioning here
Oh,
and how that works with a tzachak becoming laugh, becoming a jokester. White becoming a whitener.
whitener.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
There is a song, Song of Songs.
Uh-huh.
Does mention about Lebanon, living waters coming from Lebanon. You know, mentions living
Yep.
waters.
Yeah. That's interesting because also in the
Yeah, there's also Sadiqa Tamadifra, que eres para Libanon,
and in the end of days, right? Where does the water come from that heals the nations and all that stuff, right? Yeah. Lebanon, in the other sense of the word. But yeah, and I just learned this like a few weeks ago. I just saw that connection from a story actually about the siege of Jerusalem and stuff. But it's interesting. Now I'm starting to see this show up other places, and it's like, oh, that actually connects with the temple. So like in Psalm 92, it says, the righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar in Lebanon. And then the very next line is, everybody know? Those who are planted in the house of the Lord.
Flourish forevermore or something.
Yeah, so it's directly after the phrase about grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those who are planted in the house of the Lord, they will be. And so it's like directly connected again. So starting to see that show up more and more. It's kind of an interesting little connection. All right, go on to verse.
So I have
oh,
to ask you,
Yes.
do the sages agree with you on this?
They do.
I just think it's weird that Moses would see the mountain.
Yeah. Well, we know that he saw things, right? Because he saw the pattern for the tabernacle and different things like that, right? God showed him some things. So, you know.
Well, I guess he had Abraham with
Right.
Moriah, maybe.
Right. And you can read this, like, that's the beauty of the Hebrew, though, is that you can read this as just saying he wants to go see that land, the good mountain, or even mountains, even though, I mean, this is technically singular, but a lot of English translations say mountains, the good mountains. It's technically singular. So you can read it as that general thing. He wants to see that land, he wants to see Lebanon, he wants to see all those good mountains. And that's fine. Like that's not a wrong translation. I think that's true. That's like the simple literal meaning, right? But then you can uncover deeper meanings of even that Moses understands, like the whole goal of getting to that land is to see God's house established and a place, for him to dwell. So Now you guys already know that, so when I ask on Shabbat, because I think I'm facilitating, you can all be like, oh, I know.
But I have to remember it.
Yeah, so this is how I check you to see if you remember, right?
Oh, gosh.
Okay. Verse 26. Vayit aber Adonai bi lemanchem velo. Who remembers what that means?
No.
Velo shama. So what do you think that means?
Don't listen.
Don't talk.
He didn't listen. Velo shama Eli
Okay.
vayomer Adonai Eli
And you didn't hear the word.
ravlach al tosef daber Eli od badavar hazeh. Okay. Vaitaber. This means it comes from the root having to do with, well, actually, it's interesting. It's similar to this, right? You see that? It's the same root there. But this is actually a synonymous root that has to do with burning. So I don't know if you remember the name of the place, Tabera, one of the camps where they stayed, and that was where there was, I think, was that where the?
Where the quail, they burn for meat or something, or
I think it was it might have been where the fiery serpents were. Is that what it was called, Tabera? I think so, because of the burning. But anyway, it's connected with burning. So this is, in this case, most English translations would say he was angry with me, but basically he burned toward me. Vitaber Adonai bi, right? So he burned toward me. Lema'anchem, so for your sakes, or because of you. Velo shama Eli, and he did not listen to me, right? So he didn't listen to that request that we just read. Vayomer, and he said, right? Adonai, and the Lord said, Eli, to me, Rav lach. What's Rav? Anybody know that one? Great or
mass.
many or much. So when you see this phrase of like Rav lach or Rav lachem, it's usually meaning it's like enough. Okay? It's like it's already a lot for you. So just it's enough. Stop. Okay? So it's saying quit. Rav lach al tosef. Do not add. Right? That's like the same root as my name, Yosef. Al tosef.
Oh, look at that.
Do not add to this matter, right? Rav lach. It's enough for you. Don't add to this. Don't add speaking, right? Daber. Al tosef daber. Don't continue speaking. Eli, to me. Od. Any more. More. Badavar. About this. What is davar? Word, but what was the other thing it can mean? I told you last week. Things, yeah. So we would say a matter. Don't speak to me anymore about this matter. Badavar hazeh. About this thing, this matter. Okay. Yeah. So there's davar again. Obviously, shama. You guys probably already familiar with that root, but let's put it up here anyway. So there's our words so far. We've learned ra'ah, lavan, which means white, and shama. Those are good, useful words. So shama has to do with hearing. So it's a shin mem ayin. Shama. Okay, and then in verse 27, Ale. Anybody know that one? Go up, yes. Ascend. Ale. Rosh. Head. Hapisga. Go up to the top of Pisgah. Pisgah can be the name, it can be a hill, but I think in this case they think it's the name of that hill. So go to the top of Pisgah. V'sa enecha. So sa has to do with like lift up or bear. It can be like bearing something or carrying something. But with eyes, it just means like lift up your eyes, look up, right? V'sa enecha, lift up your eyes. Yama. So what is yam? The sea, yep. And so yama is like toward the sea. Yama. So the hey added on the end can be a directional thing. So you're saying toward the sea, yama. And that's also in biblical Hebrew, yama is generally translated as westward. Because in the orientation of it all, right, the yam, the sea, is to the west. And so yama is generally translated as westward.
To the west in Israel?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, west of Israel.
The Mediterranean Sea is the west side of Israel.
You're right, it is. I have to look at my map.
Not the Sea of Galilee, you know, she's...
Right. Oh, she's talking about Sea of Galilee, yeah.
School teacher.
It's okay. Vetzafona. Okay, so this is another direction, north. So lift up your eyes westward or toward the sea. Safona, toward the north. V'teimana, toward the south. V'mizracha, toward the east. Ur'e, what's that mean? And see. Be'necha, with your eyes. Kilo, for you will not. Tavor, what's this word? Cross, yeah, you will not cross over. Et hayarden. Haze, this Jordan. You will not cross over this Jordan.
If we translate this too literally, it doesn't sound great.
Isn't that cool how often these words that we've learned are showing up again and again?
Yeah, especially like Mitzrayim.
Mitzrayim is her favorite word. All right, we're going to take one more verse here. Oh, wait, we have to finish this little section. 2 more verses. Here we go. Vitzav. Okay, anybody remember that word? It's like, it's the root of the word mitzvah. Command. So this is the verb form. So this is and command. Et Yehoshua. So command Joshua. V'chazkeu. And strengthen him, right? You see the root chazak? Chazkeu. Give him strength. Strengthen him. Ve'amtzehu. And encourage him or give him courage. Ki hu ya'avor. What's the root? Cross. He will cross over. Lifnei. Lifnei means in front of or before. Lifnei. Ha'am. What's am? Am Yisrael, the people, right? So he will go over in front of the people. Hazeh, this people. Vehu, and he yanchil otam, and he will cause them to inherit, at haaretz, the land, asher, which, tireh, what's this word? Re'eh, see, which you will see. He will cause them to inherit this land that you will see. Okay, in verse 29, vaneshev, what's that mean?
And sit?
Yeah, that's the root, sit or dwell. So this is we sat, so we dwelt. Vaneshev, bagai, we dwelt at Gai. Mul, so that's across from Beit Peor.
Yeah, Beit Peor, that's where Bilam was from.
Yeah, the Peor, yeah, the whole incident with Baal Peor and all that, right? The house of Peor.
Peor. Peor means worse in Spanish, peor.
Really? Okay. So neshev, vaneshev.
Okay?
You'll see that word a lot. Lashevet, to sit or to dwell. There we go. We finished off
What you thought we were talking about?
that first section of the Torah portion.
Different type of-
Oh.
Good job, Kate. Now just to review those words. Ve'eh, so Reish Aleph Hey, has to do with seeing, right? Lavan is white. And Shama. Yes, Laban's name is just white. Lavan.
So everybody's name was just black? Or
Lavan.
Gracie.
Don't think so.
Cajol, or what's black?
Oh my God.
Shachor.
Shahol, Shahol.
Yeah.
It's so fun when I'm able to do passes because I
Alrighty.
never got pensions for so long.
Zeu. That's it.
Sof?
Zeu. Ze hasof.
Sof kita?
Sofa kita.
תודה רבה.
All the class.
Bavakasha.
אורן.